Thank you very much for your patience. So we've got a confirmed link to our YouTube broadcast, so I will now commence the meeting. So good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 27th October 2020. Before we commence with the proceedings, I can confirm that the Council has adopted some basic etiquette rules for its remote meetings. These are as follows. Please only speak when the Chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the Chairman know that you wish to speak through the chat function. The Chairman will introduce speakers in the order that the request to speak has been made, unless there is a point of order at which we will give way. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute your microphone when not speaking and consider turning off your video to reduce any interference on the audio feed. Please bear in mind that there is a lag between speaking and other attendees hearing you. Presentations and images will be visible on the screen. Please indicate via the chat function if there is a problem. When referring to reports, please quote the page number and, if appropriate, the paragraph number. There is no private business for tonight's meeting. However, I'd like to remind members that it is your responsibility to ensure that your venue and connection is private. If you lose connection at any point in the meeting, please attempt to rejoin the meeting, and if necessary, please email me so I can be aware that you've got some connection problems. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to the access to information regimes of FOI, EIR, is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation and the Council's Code of Conduct. To assist with managing the chat function for this meeting, the agenda items will be included to act as markers. I can confirm that the meeting is quorate. The Planning Committee consists of the following members. The Chairman is Councillor Wendy Scattergood, Vice Chairman is Councillor Iona Parker. Then we have members Councillor James Abbott, Kevin Bowers, Tom Cunningham, Patrick Horner, Hilton Johnson, David Mann, Annie Bundy, Frankie Ritchie, Gabrielle Spray, Nick Unsworth and Justin Wrench. We have had apologies from Councillor Abbott for this evening's meeting. We have officers in attendance, and these are Chris Padgey, Planning Development Manager, Matt Wild, Senior Planning Officer. Alison Webb is the Governance Officer to clerk in this meeting, and if necessary, we'll read the submitted public question time statements. I'm Emma Wisby and I'm the meeting facilitator, and I'm being assisted by my colleague Jessica Mann. To help distinguish officers and members on the broadcast, officers have a prefix of officer, councillors have a prefix of CLLR, and public question time speakers have a prefix of PQT. I will now hand over to the Chairman, Mrs. Wendy Scattergood. Mrs. Scattergood does have problems with her connection tonight, so she may appear in this meeting as audio only, but I can confirm that she is present in this meeting. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. Emma, before we start, should Mr. Johnson not be put into a waiting room?
We are now going to do that. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you.
Sorry. Right, I've just put my video on for a moment so everybody can see I'm actually in the meeting, and then I will switch it off if it gets worse. Welcome members to our meeting, and also can I welcome members and residents watching us on YouTube. I'll go straight on to the meeting. I'll just remind everyone, if you wish to speak, please let me know via the chat function. First item is item 1, apologies for absence. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Abbott. Everyone else is present. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest relating to items on the agenda having regard to the Code of Conduct from members? I see Councillor Ritchie, you wish to declare an interest.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, please, I'd like to declare an enhanced non-pecuniary interest, please, in agenda item 5A, which is application number 2000501 full Great Notley Skate Park. As Vice Chairman of the Parish Council, I've had a fair amount of involvement in this project, and therefore I'll be removed from the presentation, debate and the vote, and will sit in a virtual waiting room until agenda item 5B. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would also like to declare an enhanced non-pecuniary interest in the item relating to Great Notley Skate Park as a member of Great Notley Parish Council. Having taken advice, I will leave the meeting whilst the debate is taking place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. I don't have anyone else notifying me they have an interest. So we'll go on to item 3, the minutes. I have the minutes of the 18th of August 2020 and the 13th of October 2020. I will take them individually. Does anyone wish to raise any issues, or will someone like to move that we sign these as a true record? I'll start with the 18th of August. Some moves.
Madam Chairman.
Right,
Race with Councillor
Cunningham, you've moved them, and I think Councillor Mrs. Spray has seconded. Silence will mean agreement to those. Absolute silence. Now we come to the minutes of the 13th of October. Is it your wish that these are a true copy? Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Has it got a seconder?
I'll second, Chairman.
Thank you. And I'll take silence as bit that you all agree that they are a true record. No one's made any comments, so that means that both of those sets of minutes have been agreed. We now come on to item 4, public question time. We have no general questions this evening, so we go straight on to the planning applications, which is agenda item 5. We have no items in part B this evening, so I'm going to go straight to the part A planning applications. And the first application is application 20005014, Great Notley Skate Park, Notley Green, Great Notley. And I have 2 speakers on this item. And the first speaker is Councillor Ritchie, who is the ward member for Great Notley. Councillor Ritchie, would you like to make your statement, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Planning Committee members. Thank you for allowing me to read my short statement. I'm reading this statement in the capacity of one of 3 ward members for Great Notley and Black Notley, with the full support of the other 2 members, Councillors Butland and Councillor Tom Cunningham. Since Great Notley Parish Council came up with the idea of the project to renew the recreational area for teenagers, or RAFT for short, it has maintained a focus of not just delivering for a niche following, but for the full wider youth and young adults within our community. They have consulted with the younger members of the community via school surveys and targeted questions via our social media channels, and engaged with peer council groups who have delivered other like-sized projects before even entering into the concept stage of the project. Based on those responses and peer engagement, the parish carried out scoping of what a new raft could look like before seeking further comments on its conceptual ideas. The way the parish council has planned, funded, consulted on this project needs to be commended. They have consistently updated ward members via parish council meetings, planned and applied good governance in the procurement process, and been innovative with finding funding sources as well as funding the project from its own budget. And finally, engaging with Braintree District Council during the planning process to bring this application before you this evening. I have no doubt that if this is approved and if it is delivered, this new facility will have lasting benefits to all ages in Great Notley. Good quality outdoor facilities such as these, and in this current time of COVID, are essential for physical and mental well-being, and as such, it has the full support of the 3 ward members. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. We will now wait while you are put into the waiting room, or as you're leaving the meeting, or however you're going. I believe you're going right out of the meeting.
Chairman, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cunningham are in the waiting room. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. The next person wishing to make a statement on this application is Mrs. Suzanne Walker, and she is the Clerk of Great Notley Parish Council. Mrs. Walker, please.
Thank you. The application for a concrete skate ramp and the teen shelter is in relation to land at Notley Green, Great Notley, which is an area of land that has been used for recreational purposes, including a skate area, since 1996. The Parish Council has always maintained the area, and its lease with Braintree District Council states that the land shall be used for recreational purposes. Consultations with the community over the years have revealed that residents would like improved facilities for teenage residents. You'll note from the design and access statement that to decide how best to upgrade the area, the Parish Council entered into a comprehensive consultation with residents, including a survey with young people, which received 268 responses, and also a drop-in session for all residents in the community centre, which was well attended. Thus, the Parish Council is able to say that the planning application before you reflects the views of young people in the parish as to what they would like in the area. The design and access statement and associated plans sets out the proposals, and you'll note that the existing metal ramp is to be replaced with a concrete facility, which will offer better flow for skaters, and in particular will be quieter than the existing metal ramp and will be visually more pleasing. In relation to the teen shelter, it is of a modest size, and the surrounding vegetation means that there will not be a detrimental visual impact upon the area in relation to the shelter or the skate facility. It's noted that 2 residents have raised issues of antisocial behaviour in the area. However, during the design process, there was communication with the police to try and address how to avoid such behaviour, and their advice regarding the management of vegetation has been noted. In addition, the Parish Council has recently been verbally advised by the police that there is no record of any recent reports of antisocial behaviour at the site. The current facilities in the area are now becoming quite worn and tired, and it's considered that the proposals will provide a wonderful facility for young people within the parish in line with their wishes. And the Parish Council would urge the committee in considering all the factors to grant this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for making your statement, Mrs. Walker, on behalf of the Parish Council. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We'll now move on to the presentation once Mrs. Walker has been put into the waiting room.
Chairman, Mrs. Walker does not need to be removed from the meeting.
Sorry.
She will remain for this item. And when
Sorry,
we conclude this item, we will
see
then...
her only. I will now move on to the presentation, which I believe is going to be made by Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Bear with me, members, while I'll just share my screen for the presentation. Okay, and hopefully you're all able to see this. So as introduced by the 2 speakers during public question time, this is the application for the installation of a concrete skate ramp and the erection of a teen shelter at Notley Green in Great Notley. I've got a short presentation for you which will just run through the plans, and it also includes some photographs as well. So starting off with the location plan, which identifies the site of the existing facility. So you can see the site edged in red there. It's accessed off of a footpath which leads into the pedestrian cycle path spine and main spine running through Great Notley. And you can see the surrounding development. You can also see on that plan the existing residential properties that are closest to the actual facility as well. Just an aerial photograph, so this is quite useful in just identifying what was referenced again during public question time, which was around some of the existing vegetation. So you can see on the north and the eastern sides, it's fairly dense in terms of the amount of vegetation, but then you'll see as you come back towards the main spine road, you do have some vegetation, but it's of a lower scale and slightly less dense. Block plan of the proposal. So this shows the position of the skate park, but also the location of the proposed teen shelter. And again, to the just off of the left there, just off the plan, you can see the pedestrian access that leads through to the area of hard standing, which in turn leads through to the location of the skate park. and then a plan of the skate ramp itself. So again, as mentioned during public question time, it's proposed as a concrete skate ramp, the size of which it would be 14 metres by a maximum of 9 metres, and the height is approximately 1.2 metres off of the ground. And you can see the layout there, and the I think it's referred to as a double pipe. I'm no expert in this particular matter, but yeah, so that shows the layout of the curves of the ramp. And then the proposed teen shelter. So a maximum width depth of just over 2.6 metres and a height of around 2.5 metres, or 2.25 metres, apologies. Just some photographs. So this is a view looking from the pedestrian spine. You can see the planning notice there on the left-hand side. So this is looking towards the area where the skate park is located, also referred to as the raft. Photo within the area which shows the existing facility. So beyond the basketball hoop there, you can see the ramp and also a small seating area. And again, slightly more close-up view of the ramp as it exists at the moment. Actually on the ramp, and then a view looking back. So again, just on the right hand side there, that's how you'd access the actual area itself. So in terms of key considerations in this case, as again mentioned during public question time, the actual area itself is currently used for this sort of sport and recreation facility. It's an existing facility that effectively would be upgraded as a result of the proposal. The design actually of the new skate ramp would actually have less visual impact, I think we can conclude, than the existing, very much in keeping with the current use of the site itself. The vegetation around it would help screen longer distance views of the facility, but again, the lower level vegetation on the side going back towards Notley Green would mean that the facility is still benefits from some natural surveillance as well. As mentioned within the report, there have been some concerns raised by a couple of neighbouring residential properties in terms of neighbouring amenity, but also in terms of antisocial behaviour. Based on the existing use of the site, which is currently used as a skate ramp, it's not considered that this proposal would have any more of a detrimental impact upon neighbouring residential amenity than the existing situation, but it is considered to be well designed. It would have less visual impact than the existing, and the size and scale of it and the construction of it should actually mean that there would be slightly less impact than the current facility. It'd obviously be incredibly beneficial as well in terms of sport and recreation for local residents to use, and the teen shelter as well would be an upgrade of the existing facility as well. There's no highway impacts arising from the proposal, so this is part of the existing sports field, no parking requirement required. It doesn't remove any parking or affect any public right of way in that regard, so there's no issues or impacts there. So on that basis, officers have concluded that the proposal is acceptable in planning terms and recommends approval of the application, so that planning permission would be granted subject to the conditions that are outlined in the report. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd be more than happy to answer any clarifications or questions on the presentation, or go back on any slides, but at that stage I'll stop sharing my screen and pass it back to members to consider.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I have no members registering to speak at the moment. Councillor Mrs. Spray.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Chris, for the presentation. Well, I'm by no means an expert on skate parks and facilities either, but I do seem to have spent an inordinate amount of time over the last few years standing at the side of them, watching my various grandchildren scoot and skate about with what seems to me to be frightening speed at times, but they are extremely good at it. And actually, skate parks and this type of facilities are enormously popular at the moment. I think they've had a real resurgence in popularity over the last few years. And certainly for young people who are not perhaps into the more traditional sports, as some of us would regard them, of football, cricket and so on, these facilities have real appeal. So I think this is an entirely good thing. It looks good. It's actually quite modest in appearance. It's replacing an existing rather worn facility. I absolutely agree with the comments made by the parish council. And there's the addition of the shelter, which is a good thing. There don't appear, despite I think some of the reservations made by residents around poor behaviour, we've heard that there really isn't a problem as far as the police are concerned. So all in all, I think this is a benefit to the community. I hope the youngsters enjoy using it. I'm very happy to move officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Spray. Does it find a seconder before I move on to other speakers?
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson, I've got Councillor Unsworth before, and then I'll come back to you. Councillor Unsworth.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Just a couple of quick ones, really. Obviously the concrete replaces a certain amount of grass. I notice there's nothing on drainage at the side, and they do tend to get very soggy around the edges. I'm just wondering if there's any provision or within the construction programme, I can't see anything in the notes to allow for extra drainage at the side of it, so it doesn't get well worn and very soggy at the sides. That's the first one. The second one, is there any plans to redeploy or refurbish the one that's there to another site? That could be quite a useful thing for another community, I wondered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. I'll ask Chris to come back on those two questions before we move on.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Unsworth, for the question. So on the first point around the drainage, I think that's really comes down to more of a management issue actually for the parish council, in terms of that there's nothing, as far as I'm aware, that's set out within the application around the drainage side. It's a fair point, and obviously with the concrete, you are going to get a certain amount of runoff, but it is a modest sized facility, and therefore the amount of potential runoff from that effectively concrete impermeable area is going to be limited by the size of the facility. So I wouldn't say it's something from a planning perspective that we would need to be concerned about or would need to be thinking about imposing any conditions on, but I think it's more probably of a management issue for the parish council to think about the treatment around the actual skate park to make sure that that type of issue doesn't arise. In terms of the existing facility and whether or not there are any plans, again, I'm not aware, but I can see the parish clerk was nodding. So we could certainly, in that regard, I mean, I think it's a good suggestion that certainly if the facility is usable and it could be reused elsewhere, obviously in terms of relocating it, then that potentially, if it could find a new home, then obviously that would be beneficial, obviously subject to the right planning permission being in place for its new home. But again, the proposal in front of members this evening that you need to make a determination on is the replacement facility, because that's effectively what's being applied for within the scope of the planning application. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hopefully those answers clarify the two questions.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Johnson.
I just wondered, it may seem a wild idea, but as it's for young people, do we have any considerations for Wi-Fi to the shelter? Is that a possibility? I believe it's come up with other shelters in other parishes. Just interested to know. Thank you.
I don't know if you can answer that one, Chris, can you?
Again, Madam Chairman, thank you. I'll try and come back. So again, Councillor Johnson, very good suggestion. I could imagine that would be of interest certainly to the users of the skate park. Again, I'm not really sure that that's a planning consideration here this evening in terms of a requirement for the facility, but again, maybe it's something that the parish council can note from the meeting that point has been raised, and it could actually benefit future users of the facility if that was in place. So but not, I think, strictly speaking, a planning consideration for the determination on the application this evening.
Thank you, Chris. Not a planning matter, but quite a good suggestion. I haven't anyone else wishing to speak at the moment. I know that Councillor Mann is having problems losing his connection, but no one else has read. It has been moved and seconded that we grant this application, so I am going to put it to the vote at this time. Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Mann.
For.
Councillor Monday,
4.
Councillor Mrs Parker,
4.
Councillor Mrs Spray,
4.
Councillor Unsworth,
Sorry, mouse wouldn't work. 4.
Councillor Wrench.
4.
Thank you, members. That application has been granted unanimously. Thank you. We'll now wait to have our 2 councillors brought back into the meeting before we go on to the next application.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'm just admitting Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Ritchie. And if I may, I will now remove Ms Walker from the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. Right. Chairman, before you proceed, could I just test the connection for Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cunningham, please?
Hopefully back in the room, Emma.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Cunningham.
Hello again, Emma.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham. Chairman, for this next item on the agenda, you do have a public question time speaker in the waiting room. With your permission, can I bring Mr. Johnson forward?
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you.
Is he there?
He's just joining the meeting now. Chairman, Mr. Johnson, you are now in the meeting for agenda item 5D. The chairman has not yet opened this matter up, but could I just please test your connection, please?
Thank you, Emma. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chairman will invite you to speak at the appropriate time. So if you'd like to mute your microphone, please. Thank you very much, Chairman. I now hand the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Emma. This brings us on to the application, which can be found on page 14. This is application 20.01100/VAR. Application for variation of condition 2 approved plans, demolition of existing buildings, variation would allow amendment to site layout, etc. Apple Tree Farm, Polecat Road, Cressing, Essex. Mr. Johnson, would you like to make your statement? I remind you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, councillors and those listening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. I can hear you.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you. My name is Ben Johnson, and I am a planning director as the applicant at Inland Homes. Some councillors will recall that I spoke in support of the original approved planning application that was presented at your committee in September of 2019. Following your approval, we have engaged with your offices to complete the Section 106 agreement, which was signed in February of 2020. We also had your recent approval to amend the wording of several planning conditions to allow a start on site as soon as possible. The application before you tonight seeks some minor amendments to the layout and house types of these approved homes. As noted in your officer's report, the layout changes proposed are relatively minor. The rationale for these changes is due to the time that has passed since Inland Homes began bringing this site forward in early 2017. Since then, we have updated our house types to reflect changes to National Planning Policy space standards and other building control and building regulation policies. As a result, we now have new house types which reflect up-to-date building regulations. As set out in the officer's report, statutory consultees raised no objection to the minor amendments proposed. We did, however, make further amendments at the request of the Parish Council during this consultation process. Care has also been taken to ensure that the character and appearance of the overall scheme is preserved, which has been a result of extensive engagement with your planning and design officers throughout the planning process that began back in 2017. The amendments before you tonight will hopefully allow for a start on site in the coming weeks. The minor changes are supported by statutory consultees and officers. We look forward to continually working with your council to bring this former industrial site into a homely environment that supports its residential neighbours. Many thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much for your statement. We'll now move on to the presentation, and the presentation is going to be made by Matthew Wild. Good evening, Matthew.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. Okay, bear with me 1 second, please, while I share my screen for the presentation. Okay. So, as has been mentioned at public question time, this is the second variation application which has been submitted to the council at this site. This variation application seeks to vary condition 2, which contain the plan numbers on the original planning permission, which, as has been said, was granted last year in September. As members will be aware, in accordance with section 73 of the Town and Country Planning Act, the local planning authority must only consider the condition amendments that are subject of the application. It's not a complete reconsideration of the application. The original planning permission will also continue to exist whatever the outcome of this application. Members will also recall the other variation application, which was heard on the 13th of October at this site, which sought other condition changes to bring the site forward for a quicker delivery. This was, of course, approved, subject to the completion of the deed of variation. So it's set out, probably clearer than I'm going to say it in the report, but basically what we're going to do is, if members are minded to grant permission this evening, it's recommended that the description development for this application, which is 1100, be updated to remove reference to the old full application and instead refer to the other VAR application, which has already has a resolution to grant permission. But as I say, that is set out in the condition and recommendation section of the committee report as to the steps necessary. Right. The red line of the site remains unchanged, but just for the avoidance of doubt, this is it. You've got Ty Green up to the northwest and crossing over to northeast. So this is the site plan which was approved back in September. This variation application seeks to amend the layout and some of the house types, although these changes are relatively minor, and I'll talk you through those. So moving on to slide 4, which is the proposed site plan now. What I'll do to make it easier for members, rather than having to sort of squint at the screen to spot the difference, I'll take you through each different element on a side-by-side. But I think it's important to see actually that the road structure effectively remains the same, flicking between the two. So it is sort of very minor changes really that have been made between obviously what was originally approved to what is now proposed. Okay, so starting at the front of the site, so perhaps one of the biggest layout changes. So we have on my left what was approved, and on my right what is now proposed. So plot 45, which is this one here, would be relocated to the south corner of the site, which I'll show in a minute. Plot 41, which is the one that fronts onto Polecat Road, was originally proposed to be a 3-bedroom property. The application originally sought to change the orientation of plot 41, as well as change the house type to a 4-bedroom property to actually have it facing inward into the development. But through discussions with the developer, it was agreed that this would actually be reverted back, so it would have a frontage of Polecat Road and a better relationship with the properties that are adjacent. So in terms of other changes, plots 42 and 43 remain a semi-detached pair, although these have been changed to a combination of 2- and 3-bedroom houses, opposed to both being 3-bedroom houses. Okay, so moving on to slide 6, and at the top we have the approved site layout and the proposed site layout on the bottom. So you can see where plot 45 has been relocated, it's now amalgamated with plot 18. So plot 18 effectively becomes a 2-bedroom property rather than a 4-bedroom property, which it was before. So we now have a semi-detached unit. Okay, moving on. So in terms of some of the other layout changes, these are more minor. Hopefully most of them are picked up within these sort of two images. Plots 5 and 6, I'll step back a bit further from the road. Plots 20 to 25 are repositioned away from the edge of the street to ensure that the roofs of plots 20 and 25 do not overhang the adoptable highway. Plots 28 and 29, semi-detached pair of 2-bedroom houses are enlarged to a pair of 3-bedroom houses. The mix of accommodation is balanced by the change to plots 61 and 62, which are reduced from 3-bedroom properties to 2-bedroom properties. This results in the relocation of the affordable housing units, as I'll show you in a second. Plots 58 to 63 are shifted to the east slightly so the roof of 63 doesn't overhang the highway, and all other layout changes are even more minor and are set out in the report. Okay, just moving on to the tenure plan. So what was approved at committee on September last year is on my left, and what is now proposed on my right. So you'll see the only difference, other than obviously the minor layout changes, is the where the developer swapped some of the house types around. This has meant the affordable housing has had to be slightly moved from this corner to this part of the site. Officers are still satisfied that this is an appropriate location for the affordable housing units, and there still is enough sort of separation between the different areas to, not sort of cluster them all in one area. Okay, moving on to some of the house type changes then. So I've included the house type changes as succinctly as I can to show the differences. So I've got a couple of slides. Hopefully it's quite clear. So on the left is what was approved, and on the right is what is now proposed. Firstly, it's important to note that not all of the properties will render on the approved drawings. They just didn't show the material so that they were going to be. So this is now clarified in the proposed application before you this evening, and as you can see, it's a mixture of brick and render brick, and obviously there's slightly different roof forms and gables, but the changes are minor. I think the one of the main things is this loss of a double pile, which is one of the gable fronted properties, which I think there was about 4 of on the development. This has been changed owing to maintenance issues for future occupiers. So it's gone to sort of the more standard semi-detached facing property. And in terms of the chimneys, this was something that was taken off originally, but has since been put back on, and certainly on some of the affordable housing units as well. Officers wanted to make sure that there wasn't a distinction between any market and affordable units. So there's a variation of chimneys across the site in all tenures. And also there's also the exposed rafter feet have been retained as well. Even though they are superficial, they are still a nice feature and add to the character and appearance of the development. So it still retain that quality. And yeah, you can see some of the other changes I've said are fairly minor. In terms of the other changes, these are probably, again, even more minor. Officers consider they add a consistency, the changes, make the development have a cohesive appearance, a cohesive character. So obviously this development is going to be like its own sort of area in a way. And I think it will sort of have its own character, and I think it will be consistent in how that character comes across. Moving on to slide 11. So the other changed house type is the 4EB and 4EB1. It's evident that both are very similar. However, the 4EB1 house type is the one which faces onto the front of the site, which is plot 41, which I showed you earlier. and is the main corner turner on other parts of the development which have quite a high level of visibility, such as on the bigger area of open space at the bottom of the site. So on initially on house type 4EB1, it was proposed to have less windows in the side elevation, slightly more than what is shown on 4EB, but not as much as is now shown on 4EB1. So officers negotiate with the developer to introduce some additional windows more akin to what was approved previously to make sure that that unit effectively turned the corner and provided some visual interest in the gable elevation. So officers are now satisfied that that is a sufficient amount of fenestration to provide that visual interest and certainly add character to development. So again, on this one, much like the other variation, the developer has agreed to enter into a HRA payment, and this will be secured through the deed of variation. So there won't be two payments. It will be one payment for the development, but we'll contain that within the two variations, if you like. So the HRA payment ultimately will be secured. So just to sum up then, the changes, as you'll have seen, are relatively minor in nature. Officers are satisfied that the scheme would still be delivered to a high quality, will be introduce a consistent character, and it's recommended that that members continue to support the design ethos of the scheme. So it's recommended that the application is approved this evening, subject to the HRA, as I've said, subject to the issue of the decision on the other variation application, and then, as I've said, the description being updated for this application. I'm happy to answer any questions or clarifications, and I'll stop the presentation there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for a very detailed report. It was a bit like sort of playing spot the difference at times, but that I think just demonstrates the changes are comparatively minor, and that the scheme is fundamentally and essentially the same as the one that we've already agreed. There does appear to have been a reasonable and a fruitful dialogue between the developer and the parish council and planning officers, and I can't spot anything that is to the amenity detriment of local residents. So happy, Chair, to move officers' recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Does that find a seconder before I move on? No
I have a second, Councillor Monday.
Thank you, Councillor Monday. Do you wish to speak?
Only just to concur with Councillor Mann's comments that the changes seem to be minor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a couple of quick ones. In the Braintree local plan review policies, could I just ask why RLP 76 is not referred to for the recovery of grey water and sustainability? You've got the ones around it, but not 76. And the other one was looking earlier at the documentation. There is a consulting statement from Essex Police about designing out crime. And within the design and access statements, there's nothing on secure by design or crime prevention through environmental design, although we're talking about changing the windows and everything else. I think this is something that we should look at adding again, as we did on the last one. I think the big one in Braintree, we asked about secure by design and crime prevention through environmental design. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. Matthew, did you wish to come back on this, or does Chris wish to come back?
Thank you, Councillor Unsworth. So we haven't referred to policy RLP 76 in the decision notice. We can do that if members wish. We hadn't done it on the previous variation either. It's not something that I think was entirely necessary to include in this particular case, but as I say, happy to include it on the decision notice. In terms of the secure by design, that's obviously optional for the developer to do. It's something that goes through the building regulations process as far as I'm aware. So of course, we'd make every encouragement for the developer to try and achieve those design standards. But of course, obviously this is on an advisory note rather than a forceful note, if you will. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Sorry, if I might just ask if we can amend the proposal to include RLP 76 then, which is about the recovery of water and sustainability.
Could you repeat the number for me, please, Councillor Unsworth?
RLP 76.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Mann, as you move the recommendation, are you happy to add RLP 76?
Happy to, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Monday, you're happy as you're seconding it? Yeah.
Yes, happy, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Chris, you wish to come back?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sorry, I just wanted to add just what Matt answered there in terms of the secure by design. I think it's a point, Councillor Unsworth, I'm aware you've raised on previous matters. Just I think with this particular development, and we can always put the layout plan back up. Obviously, what we're looking at here is a variation. So in terms of the substantive design and layout of the development, that already benefits from an extant consent. So really the focus for the variation is on the amendments that are proposed. But I think that what the layout here does very successfully, and an awful lot of thought, care and consideration went into this from the developer, but also on the original negotiations from the officer side, was around actually ensuring that the spaces within the development benefit from natural surveillance. So you'll see that all of the public spaces, the main square, if you like, in the centre of the development, all benefits from natural surveillance from the properties around it. We've covered off boundary treatments through conditions, so we've got the ability to control the areas between public and private and how those are laid out. And then you've got the area of the open space at the end, which again still benefits from natural surveillance. Because of the natural levels and layout of the land, it means it will have some surveillance from some of those residential properties. So in terms of some of the principles around secure by design, I appreciate we haven't previously added on a condition in terms of this development, but actually in terms of a lot of the principles that process seeks to achieve, a lot of the passive measures are actually built in already within the actual development itself, and we do have those finer controls in place around boundary treatments. Again, if members felt really strongly about it, we could add an informative to the decision notice, but I think in terms of adding a condition at this stage, given the changes that are proposed, which are relatively minor, we have to be mindful of the extant consent and the conditions that were outlined on it originally. So hopefully that further clarification is helpful, members, but I just wanted to add to what Matt had previously answered there.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Mrs. Parker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to to come back on the point about RLP 76, recovery of grey water. I mean, I just wanted to ask Chris's view. Is that effectively an additional condition we're seeking to impose here?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. So unless we've misinterpreted what Councillor Unsworth is saying here, there's just an omission there in terms of the reports, in terms of the other policies are quoted, so we can add it on to the decision notice for completeness. But I think, again, it's critical that we acknowledge the fact that obviously in terms of local sustainability measures, and members will be well aware of this, that we do not have the ability to impose those sorts of local standards on developments of this type. So again, there is a shift compared with that old policy. We need a policy basis in order to introduce those types of measures. So we can add it on for completeness, but in terms of any requirements that stem from that policy, in terms of any actual detailed measures, again, that's not recommended within the papers before you this evening, and from an officer perspective, we wouldn't say that that could be justified in relation to this variation application, because again, you've got the extant consent, but also the government's been very clear that those types of measures should be done, shouldn't be set out and done on a local basis. And to do so, we would need a strong policy basis with an evidence base to reintroduce those sorts of requirements, which we don't have the ability to do so at the current time. So hopefully that clarification, Councillor Parker, is of assistance.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris. Yes, that's answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Answorth, I will let you come back once more.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. It was just regarding secure by design. I think I would like to see if we can add an informative on it, because it is the official police security strategy and initiative for design works, and the police have commented on this as secure by design, something they would like to see as a consultee. So I would like to propose that we add an informative on this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, can we do that or not?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We can absolutely add an informative on. I think separately, I will take this matter, given it's been raised a couple of times by members, just in terms of how we consider applications going forward. I know from past experience, it's an incredibly good, valuable scheme. There is sometimes a slight tension, I suppose, in terms of objectives between design and secure by design, as there is with lots of different matters. So it's something I think we would need to consider in the realm when we're looking at proposals, but more than happy to take that broader comment back to the team in terms of how we approach future applications going forward. But there would be no issue whatsoever in terms of putting on an informative to encourage the developer to comply with the actually trying to achieve that sort of certification or trying to comply with the standards and specifications. But more broadly, I'm happy to take that back to the officer team.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Councillor Mann, as the mover of the motion, are you happy with adding that as an informative?
Absolutely, Chair.
And Councillor Monday as a seconder?
Absolutely, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I have no one else wishing to speak, so this item has been moved and seconded that we grant it with the addition of RLP 76 and an informative on secured by design. I'm now going to put that to the vote. Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Mann.
For.
Councillor Monday.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Spray.
For.
Councillor Unsworth.
For.
And Councillor Wrench.
For.
Members, that application has been granted unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Mr. Johnson, for attending and making your statement. Members, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I know it's very short this evening, but it was better to get these ones out over and done with, although the others had to be withdrawn. So perhaps the next agenda will be a little heavier. So I will wish you all good night. And I'll thank all members of the team. And I will also thank those members of the public watching on YouTube. Thank you, members, and good night. I'll now hand over to Emma.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members. Members, before I ask the webcasting officer to terminate the broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, please can I remind you that the Council will retain performance data regarding your connections to this meeting in the event of a legal challenge. And I've not forgotten the member survey. I did email members this afternoon to advise members that we are discontinuing with that. So thank you very much for all those members who've kindly responded through the survey as we've got used to our virtual meetings platform. But please, if you have any comments about this evening's meeting or any questions, then please, of course, email the governance and members team using our normal email address. So thank you very much, and I will now ask the webcasting officer to terminate the broadcast.